Welcome to another edition of Minot Matters here at the Dakotan, brought to you by Shock, Safe, and Lock. I am with a very special guest today, Dr. Emerson Eads. Thanks for joining us today.
Of course, my pleasure.
Absolutely. And so one of the main reasons we wanted to get together was because there's a big event that's going on at the first weekend of September.
That's right.
Tell us about it.
So the opera by Puccini, La Bohème,
Okay.
which is, it's translated The Bohemians.
Yeah.
And it's really a story, if you know the musical Rent
Okay.
by Jonathan Larson, it's that story, but it's the original story. And the music is one of it's one of those pieces that connects with every type of person imaginable.
Okay.
It's a story about love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story about working class people. A lot of operas are about kings, queens, heroines, heroes,
stuff.
and but this opera is about the people, and it's about the natural, gritty things that we all feel.
Right.
And so Bohème is special because it's the way Puccini wrote it. There's 4 acts, and each act is seamless. There's no stop.
Oh, wow.
The music is just in free flow, and so there are conversations between the singers that are so organic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they sound exactly like you would hear, Italian in a cafe.
Wow.
I mean, it's just fast. It's there's really not enough time it's like it's literally snippets from a day.
That's incredible.
And the music that when Puccini backs away from that and he'll start, going into an aria or something, it's those tunes that you've heard somewhere. They're on every opera recording.
Yeah. Right.
Pavarotti and all the big, tenors have sung, Che gelida manina, and all those other arias that are in it. But it's more than anything, it's one of those pieces that you can even go see a terrible production of and still just be absolutely devastated and moved.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And so Western Plains Opera, it's been around for a while. And one thing that's been interesting as I have tracked it over the last few years is the amount of work that you guys put into these to make it not just, you mentioned even a terrible production of La Bohème would still be incredible. You guys make sure it's not terrible. You guys put in a lot of work into making sure that the quality is first class.
And that starts with the cast.
Yeah.
The cast that's assembled, it must be, the trick about Bohème is that it's about young people.
Mm-hmm.
And the voices that it takes are the voices of big, older singers.
Okay.
But you can't have that because they're supposed to be young people.
Right,
so
right.
You have to catch these artists when they're just absolutely at the top of their game. And
Right.
And this cast that we have is just phenomenal.
Wow.
I'm like still just amazed that we assembled it. But it's in the tradition of the Western Plains Opera. They have consistently since day one have brought in top level performers, and then also inculcated student performers from the university and community performers, which this is no different. It's the same equation. And like Opera Anywhere, opera takes a village.
Right.
But in a small community like this one, it's even more. I mean, the costume designers, the set designers, the chorus, mm-hmm. the backstage crew, the lighting designer, the marketing, the web page building.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to it, and an orchestra. My
mm-hmm.
gosh,
yeah,
orchestra. And we're so blessed to have. I think one of the things that is just still boggles my mind is that beautiful hall. And,
yes, right.
And Nicole Nelson Hall is just stunning place to sing. And in fact, that's what the artists said this time. Marcello, Daniel Schofield, who's playing Marcello, came in and just let out a few notes in the hall, and he's like, "Oh,
wow!"
Because it's just a special place, and particularly kind to the voice in a way that I haven't heard in North Dakota anywhere else. So, I haven't heard it in Bismarck or Fargo. There's something really special about this hall.
And you mentioned Daniel Schofield. That's another thing that's very neat about Western Plains is there is that mixture of local talent utilizing the Minot State and stuff like that. But you guys also bring in outside talent for some of this stuff, correct?
Right. Well, yeah, it's just about every opera that we do requires a certain, a big voice or a particular specialty. And this opera has 6 main leads.
Okay.
And like I said, they have to be young, they have to be big, and they have to be just absolutely at the top of their vocal game. And that's a tough combination to find. So in this opera, there are a few, Curtis Anderson, who is one of the children of Eric and Diana, and Dr. Eric and Dr. Diana Anderson. He is playing the role of Alcindoro and Benoit.
Okay.
Two different characters in different acts.
Wow.
And it's a fun role. But obviously he's a local, and we're excited to have him. I think this is his premiere with the company.
That's big.
So it's really special for him. And we also have a few in the chorus that have solo roles. One of which is Nathan Sagsveen, who's I believe he's a sophomore here in Minot State. And then also Jeremiah Akande, who's from Nigeria.
Wow.
And he's got a solo role. And there's also an understudy for Mimi. We have an incredible student, and she is her name's Megan Kramer, and she's from Max.
Okay.
But she's going to school at MSU and studying with Dr. DeVere Bowles, and absolutely has a stunning voice. And so she is understudying the role of Mimi, which is a very, very big role. So yeah, this company it's unlike a lot of other companies in that its main thrust is to both provide quality opera productions, but also inculcate the love of singing and education background. And yeah, we're just trying to keep it going. And I wrote this in my director's note for the program, but just the outpouring of generosity from Minot businesses and from patrons has been overwhelming. And it just shows that for over 50 years, this company has been relying on that. And there's just no other way to be able to produce this art, because it costs so much to bring artists in and to pay them for 3 weeks to make a 4-act opera come together. And it's
so 3 weeks. So you have outside artists coming for 3 weeks, and then obviously you're also working with some of the people that you mentioned from Minot State directly, students from Minot State. How long do you guys prepare for one of these? Talk about the planning stages all the way through to production.
Yeah. So, this goes back into last year. We've got to find the cast, and we've got to get people that are available, and then go from there.
Right.
So that started about a year ago, and actually Sarah Heltzel, who's singing Musetta, she was here for Carmen last year.
Okay.
And she put a bug in my ear at the after party. She's like, "Oh my gosh, I'd love to come back and sing Musetta." Yeah. And she's a mezzo, and I had never heard Musetta done as a mezzo, and so I was very curious, and so she sent me an aria of her singing it, and it's astonishing, and she's such a massive stage talent. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
that when I was like, heck yeah, we got to do this. And then she brought her friend Daniel along. So that was sort of the early casting stages. And then some friends of mine that I met when I was in the Chicago area came, and everybody gets here around the 20th of August.
Okay.
And we put on the show September 6 and 7. So I think it's under 3 weeks, and that's a tall order to put all that music to,
I mean, never have I been a part of anything to the degree that the Western Plains Opera is, but just the little church plays that you have and stuff like that. And it's months in the making. It's months. Yeah. And obviously you guys are professionals. You also have students though, and they are much more experienced than I've ever been. But still, that's a very tall order to be able to put in that high degree of a production.
And the for instance, the choir started rehearsals at the beginning of August.
Okay.
So and because it's in Italian, it just takes a little bit more effort to get that under the, into memorization. But I don't want to scare off listeners because it's in Italian, but there are super titles, and honestly, you don't have to understand a word of it to just absolutely be blown away. It's an acting bonanza on stage. I mean, it is just, the actors are sweating like going back and forth. It's very active performance. And like if you were able to pick your eyes off of them and look up at the super titles, you'd be lucky.
Right. One thing that's interesting talking with you and knowing you and seeing you work has always, something that has stood out has always been your passion. And so when did that passion ignite for you? I know that this isn't necessarily Western Plains Opera stuff right here, but I think it does play into the story that's going to be told in September, that first weekend in September. Where does that passion come from?
Oh, geez. I think that's a hard question. I think my earliest memories of connection to music is my dad. My dad is a pianist. And there are pictures of him holding me at the piano on his lap while he's playing, and then on the top of the piano while he's playing. Yeah. So pretty early, probably. But Bohème is one of those operas that, when you're in it, it's one of those things that you can look back on, and it's like a marker in time. Yeah. Like I remember when I understudied Rodolfo, the tenor, in this production in Fairbanks, Alaska, actually. Wow. And I was going through a breakup at the time, and the music is just it brings me back. Right. And I mean, the music, the show is about breakups. It's about love. It's about breakups. It's, and so it brings me right back to that time. And I think it will do that for people that don't even understand the opera. It's something that's just, we've all experienced this stuff, and we all have a friend in our friend circle like these guys. I mean, absolutely. It's, and there are so many moments in it where, 4 guys are just having a hoot of a time. I mean, just yelling and carrying on, and they're bachelors and living it up in Paris, and making little joy out of a little money, and it's such a beautiful depiction of friendship. And I think actually one of the things that just stuns me every time is at the very last few pages of I think it's the last 2 pages of the opera, when Mimi, Rodolfo's girlfriend, is dying, and she dies, and Rodolfo is just overcome, and he just and Marcello comes over to him and grabs him and says "Coraggio," and it's in the music. It's just written as spoken. It's not even supposed to be sung. Okay, but it's just yelled. And I remember in the production in Alaska, the baritone grabbed the tenor and just said "Coraggio," and it means have courage, man up. Don't succumb to this sadness. And it's so it's
moving.
We've all been there, right? And there's going to be it'll meet everybody on a different level wherever you're at.
So September 6th or 7th, whenever someone decides to attend, go to Western Plains Opera or WPOpera.org, and that's where you can buy tickets. But what's that experience like? So if someone has never been to the opera, they go to purchase those tickets online. What can they expect once they show up at the Nicole and Nelson Hall?
Yeah. So the opera is, like I said, in Nicole Nelson Hall. There are drinks, there are alcoholic beverages and non-alcoholic beverages being served, and then also at intermission as well. There's a really special component to this opera, and that is our own featured artist, Walter Peel.
Yes.
He's been a friend of mine for quite some time, and I've been trying to think of a way to work him and his incredibly inimitable art into our productions, and I finally found it, which was Marcello is a painter. Okay. And so I was talking to Walter about it, and since we're performing 2 nights, the first night, both nights, he has prepared a painting for both nights, so 2 paintings, and they will be auctioned off at intermission.
Incredible. So you want to go to both nights?
Yeah, you could want to go to exactly right, because they are different. They are different, but they both employ. They're both based off of the opening sequence, which is a frustrated Marcello at the canvas, and he's just like, and then Rodolfo is writing. He's a writer, and he just can't get it together either. He's just like frustrated artists, and he's painting, and he's painting of the Red Sea, this biblical sort of depiction, right? And then he gets so frustrated, he's like, "I'm going to drown the Pharaoh in the Red Sea," and so he throws his paint on the canvas, and so Walter kind of used that as his starting point, and built these amazing paintings. I cannot wait to show them off on Wednesday. He's going to come to our event, Encounters with Opera, to discuss that with the patrons and whatever. But at intermission on September 6th and 7th, we will auction both of those paintings off respectively.
Very neat. Very neat. Sounds like it's going to be quite the event.
Well, it also, it's not just a choir, it's also a children's choir. There's there's the kitchen sink of things going on. And I would be remiss if I didn't add, the director, Julie Wright Costa, who is here from Utah, who's been here years over, and she knows how this place works in and out, and it's wonderful to have her back and have her genius setting the stage and directing it, and then. I think probably also one of the hardest working members of the production team is Devere Bowles and Laurel Livingston, the costume designers, working countless hours, and God knows we couldn't pay them what they're worth, but they do it for the love of it, and I think that's really what it comes down to in a small town is like Minot is. People giving of themselves because of the passion that you alluded to in the beginning. It makes it easy when you're doing something that you love.
Right. Absolutely. It's neat to hear the mixture of the passion that Minot has and grabbing in some of the talent that's needed in order for it to be that full thing, and how that all mixes together to make this beautiful story, make these beautiful productions. That's really neat to hear how that happens. So as we come to a close, unless there's something particular you wanted to add, or are there any last words you have for somebody that might be on the fence about wanting to come to the opera September 6th and 7th?
No, I think if you're on the fence, there are plenty of weekends you can go to the lake. I'm sorry. I think one of the taglines on our poster out on Broadway is "Update your date night, go to the opera," and I love that. I think that's fun. But I highly recommend coming to this opera because not only is the cast just stellar, it's one of those stories that will feed your soul at a time when divisiveness is so ripe.
Yes, right.
It's one of those stories that meets everybody in the middle. So
you can go to wpopera.org to grab the tickets. They range from $25 to $35, very affordable. So encourage, if you're watching this, to go ahead and do that. I'm sure you guys probably will sell out, so probably want to do that sooner rather than later. But yeah, again, wpopera.org. Thank you so much for coming on to talk about it. It's an interesting to hear the behind the scenes aspect of what goes into make one of these happen.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And sometime we'll have to have you on, just talk about everything that you do.
You're
involved in everything musical in Minot.
Happy to. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for watching this episode of Minot Matters here at the Dakota, brought to you by Shock, Safe, and Lock. I'm Jonathan Starr. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, like and subscribe on YouTube, become part of the Dakota community. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.